In today's episode of the Pathfund Presents podcast, I have a very interesting guest here with me today. I'm with Rob Warner, who is the founder at PPC Predict. And PPC Predict is essentially, how can you say, the proven way to get better results from Google Ads. I don't think I have to say anything more. That brings it to the point. We're looking forward to learn from Rob, who he's working with, which types of companies are taking advantage of their services, and also how he's thinking about growth for the company. So Rob, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Lucas. Good to be here.
Awesome. So maybe give us, an overview from yourself. Like, what is PPC Predict all about?
So, if you indulge me 30 seconds, I'll tell you how it came about first, and then what it is, because the how, why it exists is important. So I've run an agency now for 8 years. We service predominantly local service clients, so plumbers, doctors, dentists, roofers. You get the idea. Local service providers who have a location-based business in some way, shape, or form. And if you imagine, we take on clients that often they have lots of similarities. A dentist advertising in Miami is likely to have very similar needs to a dentist in Chicago, very similar to a dentist in Seattle. What the kind of keywords, the kind of search terms in Google Ads that are likely to work for one are likely to work for another. And equally, the things that don't work for one are likely to not work for another. But here's the problem that we've had for all these years. Google aggregates billions of big data points and almost weaponizes them against agencies, and they hide them, and their entire business model is built on data analysis of big data. We as agencies on the other side of that, we see teeny tiny accounts, each which have a small amount of data, and making meaningful conclusions from small data is really difficult. So we thought, this is insane. What if we could find a way to take all these individual accounts that are all serving the same market but happen to be geographically separated and effectively anonymize them and then aggregate them into like a virtual large Google account, analyze them at that level, and then put all those findings back into each local account. Mm-hmm. What that means that we can do is we now can play a big data game with small data accounts. So that model allows us to find what works at scale, find what doesn't work at scale, and leverage it for a local. It gives a local dentist or a local plumber a power of AI that they would never have on their own. And the outcome is you get better performing Google Ads accounts.
Makes a whole lot of sense. So a new client is actually benefiting from the previous results, learnings, ups and downs of all the other clients.
All their non-competitors across the country effectively can collaborate anonymously and without even knowing who else it is to actually all get better outcomes. So if you think every dollar you spend harnesses the power of hundreds of dollars of spend elsewhere across the country.
Yep. Okay. Makes a whole lot of sense. So how do you guys, find your clients? Like, what is the, you mentioned you're working with local businesses. I'm assuming you're working quite a bit with like business owners or maybe a single marketeer from time to time.
Yeah.
How do they find you? Like, how do they find you guys?
So we're very blessed in that our agency has been well known relatively worldwide for several years now. We've been a white label agency, so we've always worked with other agencies, with freelancers, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of them. Our business has been built on lots of small clients rather than one or two big clients. So we've immediately got a list of agency partners we can work with to launch a service like this. We also do our own outreach activities to tell the world that we exist. I mean, it's quite a compelling message, I believe, and evidence seems to support it so far, thankfully, that, effectively, for no extra work, no change in your workflow, without having to fire your agency or do anything different, you can we see a typical minimum 30% performance improvement. We've seen 250% performance improvements in about 30 days.
Very good.
That's quite a persuasive argument, I think. So outreach for us has been relatively straightforward so far.
Very cool. You mentioned outreach, you mentioned partnerships. What role does the website play?
Our website for us plays a very limited role at the moment. We use it predominantly as effectively a place to book appointments. So for us, everything will typically start with outreach into a video. Once they've seen the video, if somebody's engaged by it, which is on the website, then it'll be a book a call process with us. And so our website really it's a credibility piece. It's a credibility play. But in reality, people are there for the results and for a trial. So we don't sell anybody the service. We only say, plug it in. If it works and we can prove to you an ROI after 30 days, then let's talk money. But if it hasn't, we'll walk away friends. So it's allows us to make it, a sales process very simple.
Makes a whole lot of sense. Let's come back a little bit to your offering, because it's obviously super, super compelling, right? For small business owners who are listening in, who are like eagerly spending money on Google and, only have, their limited insights from their side. Maybe if you could summarize, like, what's the main benefit of leveraging, the type of platform you're offering?
So the main benefit that you'll see immediately is you'll see the financial benefit I've already mentioned. That's ultimately the end goal, is the financial benefit, in that you will typically see at least 30, in some cases 100% more leads for the same amount of ad spend. So that's the financial payoff. To get to that point, what you'll actually see at a technical level is you will see, first thing we will do is what we call negative keywords. We'll put a bunch of blocking search terms in there that your ads will no longer show for. They are all the search terms we've proven statistically nobody's buying from anywhere across the country. So if it's on that list, we can be within a mathematical degree of confidence that you're not likely to be the exception. So we'll put a blocker in. You'll see an improvement in the quality of the search terms that you get searched for, that your ads show for, immediately. You often also see, which is a strange outcome, an increase in the cost per click to start with, because you're now effectively getting more of the good stuff rather than the garbage that Google hides. And bear in mind, it's not many months now that Google actually hid a lot of the data about search terms. So in the user interface in Google Ads now, you only see about 1/3 of the search terms that your ads actually show for. They've taken the rest away. They've cited privacy as the reason. So if you previously saw 80%, which was about the going rate, that then fell to 30%. So if you were blind before, you're now really blind now. So we kind of give that visibility back. And what you'll also see is usually increasing your click-through rates. So you kind of see these inter-account metrics, but ultimately a financial payoff. And that payoff is always more inquiries, more sales calls.
Very cool. Very, very cool. I want to switch gears a little bit, right? And look into your perspective on marketing and outreach. You mentioned you guys doing also some outreach there. Maybe a question that comes up actually quite often from listeners is like, how to bring innovation to outreach. Like, what have you found to be interesting?
So for us, our outreach is painful. Or can be painful. We hired a LinkedIn outreach firm and we hired an email marketing firm for us. Both of them failed spectacularly. They both said, so your offer is you'll get better results and you're going to do it for free until it's proven. They said, win that, easy, no problem. Both failed awfully. And so we said, okay, what's the key thing for us for outreach? The key thing for us is we need to know they're already spending money on Google Ads, because we don't want to have to persuade them to start. What we want to show is we want night and day. We want a before and an after. Because if we've got the before and after, we can see the contrast. Without the before, there's nothing to see. So we said, okay, first thing we need to know is who are all the advertisers in the market. Then can we find out how they are, who they are rather, and then an outreach method. And so that turned out to be really difficult, finding who's advertising at scale. So when you talk about innovation, the first thing we did was hire another developer and we built a platform to find all the advertisers in the market. So we had to build our own solution. We then hooked that up to contact lookup services, which again vary dramatically in price and quality. I've still yet to find the silver bullet, but I've found things that are okay. And then that with some message testing is where we're currently at. So
Very cool.
One of the key things we've found is personalizing the outreach. Don't try and do a million messages that are all generic. Personalize, treat people like people, make it valuable to them. We want to leave people in a better place whether they buy from us or not. So we always lead with education and value. Yep. So that's where we've been. If I contrast that to what I see a lot of, which is just junk quality outreach that we receive, very few people offer any kind of value in their outreach, and we've tried to change that around and offer as much as we can.
Yep. Very, very cool. Let's switch gears a little bit. I would love to talk about your focus on education, like how you educate yourself, right? There's a whole lot of, and don't worry about the door opening there. There's a lot of stuff happening in all the interviews, so that's pretty cool. So what I would love to know is if how you essentially educate yourself, right? Because there's a lot of content out there, and how do you filter? Like, what is the platforms that you go through? What would you recommend even others maybe to do in terms of staying on top of their informational game, but you can't read everything. So what do you do?
So for me, my always go-to is podcasts. And audiobooks. If somebody asks me to read something, the chance of me reading it are very slim to none. I will try lots of low entry point stuff. So I will watch any video, listen to any audio from anybody who has an interesting message. I'm a great sucker for good quality copywriting. Yeah. And my kind of filter is, does it pass the dog walk test? If I can listen to it while I'm walking the dog without seeing what's on the screen and get a value from it, then at that point, I'm interested in diving deeper into that particular, whoever it may be. I obviously look for recommendations and good quality people, but that's my first filtering point. And my goal is always ever to filter such that I don't take training that I don't have an immediate need for. And by immediate, I mean very short term. Yep. I don't want to be, playing mind games of future education that might be of value at some point, perhaps maybe, because I haven't got time for that. So my first filter is, do I have an immediate need now? If I do, I'll do a quick dive in. If it's worth it, then I'll go deeper in it.
Very cool. Super interesting, Rob. Since we're slowly approaching the end of the interview, I would love to jump into our rapid fire questions. Are you ready for those?
Sure. Absolutely.
What's the last book that you read?
The last book that I read, that's a good question. I will tell you in 2 seconds because it's on my Audible. What is it? It was Persuasion by Robert Cialdini. Yep. That's Persuasion, not the Persuasion book. It's the new one.
Yep. What is this one single thing that your company is focused on the most at the moment?
Solving data problems that our industry hasn't solved. So for us, it's all about what should our industry have built and hasn't, and let's build it.
If there would be no boundaries in technology, what's the one single thing that you would want to fix for your role?
Oh, that's a really good thing. I would love to have a perfect contact lookup. If I could find somebody's domain and find a perfect contact, that would be wonderful.
Mm-hmm. What is one advice that you would give yourself if you, would restart working on PPC Predict?
I think better project management will be a massive one for us. Our early project management of our software dev team was very, very weak. And we learned how to do it on the job, but I wish I could rewind. I'd have a lot more money in my bank account if I could rewind it at 12 months.
Sense. Rob, I really appreciate that you took the time with us to be a guest on Pathfunk Presents today. I want to give you the very last word, right? If somebody forgets everything that we discussed today, what's the one thing that they should remember about PPC Predict?
If they want more leads from their Google Ads campaigns without spending any more money or changing anything else, they should do it, because let's use data for ourselves and let's not be held to ransom by Google for it.
Very cool. Rob, thanks for being part of the show.
Pleasure. Great to be here. Thanks for having me, Lucas.